Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Tuesday, April 4th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. Well, the Royals won, and the champagne flowed. It's not even October, but it was manager Matt Quatraro's first victory, thus the celebration. On today's show, reporter Pete Grathoff and I talk all things Royals, and as is the case whenever we talk Royals during the season, there's more of an upbeat tone coming off of victory, and that's the case today, with the Royals getting their first triumph of 2023, beating the Toronto Blue Jays on Monday night. Pete and I discussed what went right and what the problems were during the opening series sweep by the Twins. We also spent time talking about the new rules and their impact on the early part of the schedule. Games are faster, offense is up, and the reviews are almost all positive. Okay, let's get started talking Royals and baseball with Pete Grathoff. We are talking Royals for the first time. Well, not the first time. We've talked Royals a couple of times earlier this year, but this is the first time since opening day. So games have been played, losses have been registered, but now so has a victory. And Pete Grathoff is here to talk about the Royals and baseball's rules changes. I want to get into that with you, Pete, and just a lot going on with the Royals. But first of all, how you doing?
Doing all right. It was nice to see the Royals get that first win yesterday. I wasn't there, but I saw the first three losses.
That's right. So if the Royals had their way, you would not cover another Royals game this season. So, well, let's start. Let's start with last night's game. They beat the Toronto Blue Jays 9-5 to get their first victory of the season, and they reversed the some trends of previous games, the ones that you saw, the most important of which was the bats, right? This was a team that, 20 scoreless innings to start the season, so shutout against the Twins, and then they finally push across 4 in Sunday's game, and it's not enough in a 7-4 loss. So, all the concerns that we had about the Royals, or I should say the bigger concerns that we had about the Royals going into the season did not come to fruition in these first couple games. That is pitching, but the lineup did not produce. We saw that on Monday night against the Blue Jays, did we not?
Yes, that's what the Royals are hoping to see. The young guys came through. The biggest stickler over the weekend was that 1 for 20 with runners in scoring position. They had opportunities in all three of those games against the Twins. I mean, the first two games were 2-0, so it wasn't like they were blown out. They just couldn't come through with the big hit when it mattered, and they did yesterday. I think they were 6 for 16 with runners in scoring position. And that's more what you want to see after they'd been 1 for 20. And that one hit came in the 9th inning of Sunday's game when they tacked on a meaningless run and a loss to the Twins.
So they were 0 for 19 going into that at bat with runners in scoring position.
Yes. Yes.
The other problem, or another big issue with the offense in the first three games was the top of the order as well. What was it? The 1, 2, 3 hitters were a combined 1 for 29 in those three games? I know at one point it was 1 for 29. Is that what it ended up?
Yeah, Bobby Witt and MJ Melendez didn't have a hit in the first three games, and Pasquantino, who had batted fourth in some of the games, but Sunday he batted third. He had just one hit. So, yeah, you don't need to get the average on 1 for 29 to know that that's not good. And Quatraro, the manager, Matt Quatraro, said after that game Sunday, obviously it's going to be tough to score runs if your guys at the top of the lineup, aren't getting on base, and that was definitely the case.
Well, and of course, that's what they did on Monday against Toronto. But also, I thought it was significant. I saw this tweet on Monday morning, and I forgot who it was from. I don't know if it was a Royals blogger or did it come from ESPN or Major League Baseball, that through the first weekend of the season, even with the Royals not scoring, certainly not hitting in the clutch, and top of the order having its issues, they led Major League Baseball in, was it exit velocity or hard hit balls, which is the same thing, I guess. But there were like two categories in which proved that the Royals were getting some pretty good swings. Maybe they were just unlucky in that first weekend.
Yeah, that's right. I think they were first in hard hit rate and fourth in exit velocity.
Okay.
Which I'm not sure. I mean, hard hit rate, I'm not sure the difference. Either one of those, both of those speak well to how well they were hitting the ball. And they did hit a lot of line shots right at somebody. But if you're a Royals fan who had to listen the last few years about how, and don't want to throw him under the bus, but Hunter Dozier's just got terrible luck because he's hitting the ball hard every time. Well, you don't want to hear that because it's the results that matter more than anything else. But, Matt Duffy, as Jesse Newell noted in today's story, he sent an email out or text to the rest of the guys, younger guys. And Duffy's been around for a while. He's 32 years old, I think. He's played for the Giants and the Rays, teams that have been good and made the playoffs. Just about, hey, you gotta, it's only 3 games. Don't stop your approach. We just didn't get the results we wanted. And I think they took that to heart. And yesterday they finally saw some results in getting that first win.
And they jumped on the Blue Jays from the start, right? First inning, they push across 3. It's finally what you wanted to see from the young hitters. I think it was said the final score was 9-5, and it was actually 9-1 going into the 7th inning. So they hit early, they hit often. They got it from I think everybody in they finished the night with 10 hits, and everybody in the batting order had at least one, except for Nate Eaton, who was batting 9th. And it was good to see Bobby Witt get a couple of RBI singles, hit with runners on. Nicky Lopez with a triple, brought in a couple. So all of that in support of Brady Singer, who made his first start of the year. And wasn't it interesting? He was the guy that we thought merited the opening day assignment, but it was not going to happen for him once he accepted the role on the United States team in the World Baseball Classic. That affected his spring training regimen with the Royals and meant he would not be the opening day starter. But he did start on Monday and pitched well, right? He got 1 run in 5 innings, left with a lead, and is the first winning pitcher for the Royals this year. I want to go back to the series that you covered, though, Pete. Starting pitching looked, until Brad Keller's 5th inning on Sunday, starting pitching looked pretty good, didn't it?
It did. Both got the first 2 guys, Greinke on opening day and Jordan Lyles on the second game. Both went 5 1/3, and the Twins didn't do very much against either one of them. And Keller pitched pretty well too, I thought, Sunday. He just kind of ran out of gas there in the 5th inning. He got the first 2 outs and loaded the bases with walks, and I just think he ran out of steam because he also is a guy who hasn't pitched gotten the length he needed in spring training, just like Singer. So the the pitching overall has been really good, I think.
I think I saw the starter's ERA after last night's game was 2.66. They'll take that every time. Opponent's batting average 2.38. They'll take that, for every series. So yeah, you're right. I thought starting pitching was going to be the bigger issue for the Royals coming into the season. So far, the early returns are pretty good. Pitchers, I know it's the height of cliche in baseball to say pitchers are often ahead of the hitters early. That changes as the weather gets warm, but I don't care. Whatever it takes, whatever it takes for the Royals to feel good about themselves, and I'm all for. As for the Twins, that's a pretty good ball club. They ended up they left Kansas City. I don't know where they played last night, but they won, and they're 4-0. So good ball club that the Royals had trouble with over the weekend. You know what? When you're the Royals, everybody's a good ball club. When you're coming off a 97 loss season and then a couple of 100 loss seasons, not in the not too distant past. Everybody looks like a big challenge, and so it is with the Blue Jays. But they get the Giants and then they hit the road for the first time, right, at San Francisco and at the Texas Rangers before coming back home. So how about just a quick thought on the bullpen? Even with the starters looking good, and you mentioned it, Pete, that heck, everybody kind of pitched well in that Minnesota series. What any hints from Matt Quatraro about what how the bullpen's going to set up and who the closer is? I mean, it's Barlow, but he didn't have a closing opportunity in the Minnesota series.
That's right. Yeah, they had to use him because he hadn't pitched. He did pitch Sunday and threw a scoreless inning. The only hint I've really seen is it seems like he's going to bring in Amir Garrett to pitch in a situation like a more high leverage situation with maybe a runner on base. He's come in twice now in that kind of a situation. And Quatraro noted that he feels like he's a good matchup against lefties and righties. I don't know that they're necessarily going to go with someone who's going to be a closer. I mean, Barlow will probably fit that situation, but if you look what Aroldis Chapman did in his first game, and we're 4 games into the season, so a sample size is going to be way too small. But that game he pitched Saturday, he hit 102.5 on the gun. He was over 100 with like a half dozen pitches, or right at that. Maybe it was 99. He was electric. He looked like his old self. He was amazing. And if you've got that in the back end of your bullpen, it's hard not to see him, if he keeps that up, as potentially also closing games.
Yeah, that was great to see. And this is a big prove-it year for him as well. It ended so badly for him last season in New York. So I hope we get the vintage Aroldis Chapman for the Royals this year, if for no other reason to increase his value if the Royals aren't contending in the summer, to see what they could get for him in a flip. So okay, I'll tell you what, Pete, let's take a break here, and when we come back, we got to talk about lineups and rules changes. We got a few things we need to get to, so we'll be right back after this.
Hey, this is Blair. There are several ways to access the Star Sports section. Let me tell you about a couple of them. There is Sports Pass. For $12.99 a month, you get unlimited digital access to all of the Star Sports content, including beat writing, columns, features, pretty much everything we write. The deal renews monthly until you tell us to cancel. For $159.99 a year, you get everything the Star has to offer digitally, including sports and the e-edition. Go to kansascity.com and drop down to the bottom of the page where it says Start a Subscription for more information. Your support has never been more important. As always, thanks for reading and listening.
Okay, we're back on SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast, and we're talking Royals with Pete Grathoff, who went and covered the opening series, and the Royals lost all 3 of those to the Minnesota Twins. They've got their first win of the season over the Toronto Blue Jays Monday night. A victory so worthy of a celebration that they spilled champagne in the clubhouse after the game. I thought, guys, Josh, for one win early, you're gonna open up the bottles of champagne. Well, it turns out that was Matt Quatraro's first victory as a manager. It was celebrated with a little champagne. He got some in the face too, I think I read.
Yeah, right in the eyes. That's why they wear goggles in the postseason.
Something we hope he will learn as the Royals manager. Yes. Oh, I remember those days of wearing ponchos and having to make sure the eyes were protected in the clubhouse. There were many champagne showers in those days, right? They were, well, count them, 6. Wild card, LDS, ALCS World Series. So plenty of those champagne showers.
And the last champagne shower was probably against the Blue Jays, right? That's 2015 ALCS
At Kauffman, yeah.
So it's
certainly in New York. They got to celebrate the World Series in New York, and that was the only one that was on the road. The World Series celebration. All the rest were at the K. So
that's right.
All right, let's talk about the lineup for a second. 4 games for the Royals so far. 4 different lineups. Only 2 players have
have played the same position in all 4 games. Vinny Pasquantino at first and Kyle Isbell in center field. I think this speaks to what we heard Matt say in preseason, that they're gonna use their entire roster, right? And we're kind of seeing that early. How many different 3 different DHs, 3 different left fielders so far this year? He's making true on that promise, isn't he?
He is. And first of all, one thing I want to throw out there, the hot stat of the day, the Royals are 0-3 with Salvador Perez in the lineup, 1-0 when he doesn't play. Let's throw that out there.
See if that's a trend.
Quatraro, I think one of the reasons why maybe we saw a lot of the roster changes is it was important to him to make sure everybody got in the first series against the Twins. He made a note of that over the weekend. You come out of spring training, you got some time off. He wants to make sure all those guys feel like they're engaged and are part of the, getting some at bats and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm not to say that he won't keep changing things up, because you've got the infield solution there, trying to get Nicky Lopez in some games. And as long as he keeps hitting a triple when the other team is expecting him to bunt, I think that he's gonna see more time in there too. I mean, it's of course still early, but yeah, it is interesting to see where guys are playing and moving things around. I think that's kind of baseball in 2023, right? Nobody's just locked into one position.
I'm wondering if we're going to see an opener, a bullpen game from pitching staff. Tampa Bay certainly known for it, where Quatraro came from, and you get Chris Bubich completing the first time through the rotation with tonight's game. I don't know if there's a natural place on the schedule for something like that to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen at some point with the Royals this year. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, but I don't know if the Royals have ever done that. I'll have to ask around, and maybe when I'm at the ballpark this week, but I don't know if the Royals have ever done that.
That's a good point. And I know they considered doing it, I think tonight in this series. They were they kind of waited before they announced their starters for the 4 games, in part because they were considering using a starter. It would be interesting to see who that starter would be. I mean, I'm not sure who the candidates you would throw out there, but I absolutely think we're going to see it. You're not going to see those 5 guys each make 30 plus starts this season. That's baseball. There's injuries, there's fatigue of the arms. They'll end up throwing, I think, a starter in there at some point.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the rules changes. Obviously, the one that got the most preseason buzz, and it was because the results were just so apparent, was the pitch clock. And Monday night's game against the 9-5 game against the Blue Jays went 2 hours and 37 minutes, and it's been the longest Royals game so far this year. That is amazing. For those of us that have followed baseball and have, watched the game extend itself from 2.5 hours to 2:45 and over 3 hours now for most of the last few years in terms of average length, to see their first 4 games all under 2 hours and 37 minutes. And that's just amazing. And when you have a game that starts at 6:40, which the Royals are doing in the early part of the season, game that lasts that long, you're done by 9:30. I mean, it's incredible. The number of times that I have covered a game at the K, and you have too, Pete, where it gets to be about 10 o'clock at night and you're only in the 7th inning, and you're not going to see highlights on the 10:30 news, the 10 o'clock news, the sports that comes on at 10:25 because the game's not over. And I'm not saying those days are behind us, but I love where baseball's trending with the pitch clock.
I think almost everybody is, right? I haven't heard that many complaints. I know yesterday MJ Melendez took a foul ball in the private parts, and needed a few minutes
as a catcher. It wasn't like
as a catcher.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sorry. And he needed a few minutes, to catch his breath. And I mean, that's probably the longest delay I've seen. And it's, it just gets a little irritating to see the pitcher step off the mound, walk around like it used to be, right? And it's just now you're getting the ball and you're throwing it again. And Vinny Pasquantino said before the season, I think you were there, I think he answered your question about it. He got called up last year. He was used to the pitch clock because he'd been in the minors already, and he would step into the box and look out and be surprised to see the pitcher wasn't even on the mound. I mean, it's ridiculous. And it's not just the pitchers who did this. And maybe I just am an old guy, but I don't need to see the batter step out of the box, readjust his gloves between every pitch. And so all this dead time that's being taken out, nobody's missing it. And the games are moving at a crisper pace. I think it's better for the fielders to be more engaged in the game. You don't have to let your mind wander. You're ready for the next play. It's been a good thing. And like you said, the 6:40 starts, which the Royals are doing when school's not in session. You're right. I mean, if you're going to take your kid out to a ball game, why wouldn't you do something like that where when the games are good, the game's going to be over by 9:15, you'll be home by 10.
Yeah, I think it's a good move on the Royals' part to do this, to start the games earlier. A couple things about the pitch clock that I've read that I found interesting. If this continues, and I read somewhere today that the average length of the game has crept up to about 240, and maybe that's because of there being more offense, and we'll get to that in a minute because of the rules changes. But even at that, if games are lasting on average a half hour less than they have in the last few years, that over a week's period is maybe close to 2.5 hours plus of action not being left on the field. And how you start adding that up week to week, how much wear and tear is that going to save on a ball player? If they're not out there for an extra half hour every day, and how that can add up to maybe a little bit more longevity to some players who aren't everyday guys who are now getting what amounts to a day off during the week because they're playing 2.5 hours less per week. And the other thing I saw, which is to the contrary of this, I guess it was in a Bryce Harper interview on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, where he's saying that some of the players don't like being hurried, especially the hitters, that they miss their routines. Maybe that involves stepping out of the batter's box and adjusting batting gloves, as you mentioned, and hitters want to see maybe that pitch clock extended a little bit. I believe is it 15 seconds when there's no runner on base and 20 when there is, or I think
yes.
that's the time limit. So maybe something to keep an eye on if you hear some ball players chirping about it a bit, that it's breaking their routine. However, offense is up. Runs are up, and stolen bases are up with the shorter bases and the new pickoff rules where you can't go over more than twice during a plate appearance. So I don't know. I think all signs are pointing toward all the rules changes being successful.
I agree with you. And Bryce Harper, and I'm sure there are others who feel like it's messing with their routine. Like you said, if offense is up, who can complain? I mean, something's going right for the batters if they're out there. I did hear, I think it was an interview yesterday, maybe on MLB Network, that I think the Phillies had gotten caught in a situation where they gave up 9 runs to the Rangers, either on opening day or that opening series, and they were talking about how the pitchers couldn't slow the game down, and that maybe now they're going to start doing more mound visits as a way to try and, because you get 5 mound visits through 8 innings, and you get an extra one if you need it in the 9th. Then maybe, and teams never come close to using those, and so maybe that's a way that pitchers will try to slow things down if you're in the middle of a bad inning. But yeah, I don't think anybody misses the the extra half hour that we've been missing from these games. And a quick point on the stolen bases, that was one of the things about the opening series for the Royals that was kind of disappointing, is they didn't even attempt a stolen base. And I think only once did a runner take off on a pitch, and it was a foul ball. And last night I got at least a couple stolen bases, and I think that's going to be a big part of their game.
Well, that's right. That was the exhibition season talk, was that the Royals were a team that could take advantage of the base stealing, the larger bases, and the limited number of pickoffs. Finally, Bobby Witt got the team's first stolen base. I think Nicky Lopez added one as well. So so they're on the board in that way. And in baseball, I read this as well. So far, there've been through the first 4 days of the season, or 5 days, there were 100 stolen base attempts, with 84 being successful. That's a heck of a success rate, 84%. So good stuff there. All right, Pete. Royals, 3 more with Toronto. Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday afternoon. They go to San Francisco for 3, at Texas for 3 after that, and then they return home. So there's going to be plenty of Royals to discuss coming up, and we're going to do that with Pete and with others as the season unfolds. So, Pete, I appreciate you spending some time with us.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Blair. Always good to talk to you.
Okay, we'll do it again soon.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to Monty Davis for producing the show, and to the SportsBeat KC staff of Randy Mason, Jeff Rosen, and Scott Chasen. Tip of the cap to Pete Grathoff for sharing his insights. Today's Morning Sports Edition was 37 pages, loaded with baseball, plus coverage of UConn's victory in the NCAA championship game, NBA, NHL, golf, so much more. Check it out at liveedition.kansascity.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in Kansas City every day.